Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there tonight. Had yourselves a wonderful day, and I hope everyone's had a great weekend out there as it's wrapping up and coming to an end. We're about to head off into our work week. And speaking of our week, I do think there'll be a lot to talk about regarding the weather, and I think the tropics will be a heavy topic out there in the weather world. So I thought, hey, let's jump on here and make an evening video. I know I've not made one in quite some time, so I thought, hey, my kids are in the neighborhood pool. The house is pretty quiet right now. Let's jump on here and feed you guys some information on this area of interest that we're watching right now. Now, right now it's not dubbed an invest or anything like that. Not obviously a named storm. The next name is Dexter, but I got my own thoughts and opinions on this area that we're watching. We saw what happened with Chantal. Model guidance underplayed the heck out of that, and we ended up getting what I think was a strengthening tropical storm upon landfall into the Carolinas, and it obviously brought a lot of impacts to North Carolina, especially a lot of flooding. So I think we need to speak on this, try to get ahead of the game, if you will. So we'll speak on current conditions, the latest on what the radar is showing, like right off the coast of Florida. We'll speak on the latest from the National Hurricane Center on their chances of this developing. We'll compare all model guidance. We'll speak on steering currents, the conditions that do support some strengthening if this thing can get into the Gulf and get its act together. So there'll be timestamps up throughout the entire video if you want to skip ahead to certain parts, and I will speak a little bit about impacts on what we do know about impacts at the very end of the video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And of course, if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. So there's a lot going on here. I kind of had to use weathernerds.com. It's a weird site to use, but it is free to you guys, to the public, but you can kind of custom zoom into different areas as far as the satellite. So I know there's a lot of blobs going on here, like here up into Tennessee, along the panhandle of Texas, up here into the Carolinas. This is basically just normal run-of-the-mill summer thunderstorm activity. Nothing unusual about really anything that's going on right now on your screen. But I want you to keep your eyes on this region right here off the coast of the southeast. We got big thunderstorms that just blew up over areas of Florida. This is the area we are watching. This is some energy that's actually kind of died down over the last several hours. We'll watch to see if it refires over the next 12 to 24 hours. But this energy right here is being created off what basically is kind of a decayed cold front, kind of a stalled out decaying cold front, and some energy gets left over the open waters off the coast of the southeast, and with temperatures in the 80s, we can get some sort of tropical development. Now, most model guidance is not showing anything developing out of this until it gets into the northern Gulf, right into here. But some model guidance, like some of the short range models, likes the idea of something spinning up a lot faster. Now, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. We'll speak on that here in a second. But this is what's going on. I know there's a lot going on your screen, but also want you to note the rotation of all this convection, because that'll be a big thing once we get to the steering currents portion of the video. You notice how this is kind of diving down like this, and then this is kind of going up like that. This is sort of going like that, and then this is sort of sinking like that. This is rotating around mid to upper level ridging, which is going to steer any kind of tropical development that can get going down here in the direction I just drew this arrow, which is east to west. So that's something to note as we're looking at the satellite here. So let's get this off your screen. Let's keep on rolling here. Now I want to take a look at the radar. What's going on? Currently we're getting big thunderstorms surging through the peninsula of Florida. Some of this has died off a little bit in the northern areas of Florida, but one thing you don't see is there is probably a lot of shower and storm activity. This is kind of out the range of the radar here, way out here off the coast of off the east coast of Florida. We do have a lot of shower and storm activity out here, but it's just not being shown. But this is definitely being kind of influenced. Of course, you would probably get thunderstorm activity over Florida even if you didn't have what could potentially be a tropical system developing off the coastline. But this is definitely being heavily influenced by a lot of tropical moisture off the coast of the southeast. So some big thunderstorms right now, kind of a mixture between normal summer type stuff and just a more heavier influx of moisture off this deep moisture off the coast of the southeast. So I did just want to show you that. I'll be interested to see what the radar looks like over Florida tomorrow morning and then tomorrow evening for sure. Now, I'm going to update this. I don't know why, because it's not like we have any updated information, but this is the latest information from about 2 p.m. We might as well say. I know it says 1:27, but let's go with 2 p.m. Still kept it at a 20% chance of tropical development. Now, this is between now and the next 7 days. And when I say tropical development, it means there's a 20% chance of this developing a defined low-level circulation, which would make it a tropical depression, or even in some cases just jumps right to a tropical storm. And once again, I'll say it again, our next named storm is Dexter. So, easy enough to say. Sometimes these names that we have to say can get a little weird. For some reason, Chantal mixed me up. I kept wanting to say Chantel. I don't know why. But anyways, next name is Dexter. So 20% chance to develop. Now listen, it's around 6:30 Eastern time at the time you're making this video. The National Hurricane Center will probably, like I said, drop another update in about an hour or so. And they might bump it up to a 30% chance. Heck, maybe even to a 40% chance, which would show up in orange, which would be considered a medium chance. So just want to reiterate that. Trust me, if it does update, I see it. I'm a weather nerd. I'm definitely going to catch it. Now, let's go over some model guides. Now, I just want to reiterate this. Model guidance like the Euro and the GFS did not do well with Chantal. Chantal overachieved by ×2, ×3. But this is, I don't want to just jump on here and show you the doomsday scenario, right? Because the icon, I'll go on and tell you, is showing a landfalling hurricane into the Gulf coastline. I want to show you the Euro and the GFS. So this is the Euro. This is starting off Tuesday morning, 12Z Zulu time. So this is Tuesday morning, July the 15th, basically 36 hours from now. Now, keep your eye kind of down here, right? All you're seeing is blobs of green, some splotches of yellow and red. You're not seeing a whole lot of anything. But as I continue to move this forward, you continue to see the same thing. There's not a whole lot to really point my cursor to whatsoever. But as we're getting into Wednesday morning, July the 16th, you're just kind of seeing some, let's call this moisture, tropical moisture down here in the eastern Gulf. And as you can tell, this is, if I put this in continuous motion, it's moving more so east to west. Well, it is moving east to west, not more so. So as we get into Wednesday afternoon, pushes some tropical moisture, into the Gulf coastline. And then we get into Thursday morning, kind of spawns out of nowhere again on your screen. And just think of this as a lot of tropical moisture. And then eventually, whatever this is, pushes into the Gulf states and sort of just dies out. There's not a whole lot to show you guys there. Now, if we look in the lower levels of the atmosphere, this is at 850 millibars, 4, 5, 6,000 feet up in the air. We can look at the lower level spin. Is there some sort of low level spin with this? Now, like I said, we start this off for Tuesday morning once again. You can see these wind barbs sort of rotating around each other here. It's not much. It's kind of elongated, and it's definitely not concentrated at all. But as we start to get into Wednesday, then we start to, and basically, you see the motion of this? Okay, Wednesday, Thursday, you can see it just cruising across the northern Gulf. There really isn't much energy there off the European at all. But I'm telling you, like I said, I'm going to give you my own take on this. I think it's underdoing it. I could be wrong, but that's part of doing what I do here. I don't want to just jump on here and show you model guides and not give you my opinion. I just think that the northern Gulf is a little bit too warm, and with upper ridging kind of influencing the storm, I do think I don't think it will have the best favorable wind pattern or upper level winds to support rapid strengthening or anything like that, but I do think that they could support tropical development. And of course, the sea surface temperatures will definitely be there. They'll be very warm. The northern Gulf is in like the mid 80s to close to 90 degrees in spots. Now, what about the GFS? I'm going to show you a different way of this because the GFS, I don't know if it's fully ran on Tropical Tidbits yet, but we're just going to show you Weather Bell's version here. Now, same thing. Kind of keep your eyes over this region. You got some greens, just moisture in and around the Florida area. And we get this in motion, we get into Wednesday. And we get, let's see if we can, yeah, we're going to have to reload it here. We're good to go. So we get into Wednesday, and then we get into Thursday. Just kind of has moisture in the northern Gulf. There's nothing too crazy at all about this. And eventually pushes just a lot of moisture into the Gulf states. Now, this could cause a lot of flooding, even if this doesn't develop into a named storm. But has that tropical moisture there. Now, once again, we'll look at that low-level vortice, that low-level energy here. And we get this in motion here, and you can see that spin. See how I moved that in continuous motion? You can see, quite literally see a cyclonic spin with this. So there's something there. It just never gets going on the Euro or the GFS. Now, the icon. And listen, the icon has sniffed out tropical systems. I don't think it's a terrible model for tracking tropical systems. But it really, it already has not a decent, but some sort of tropical system getting going on top of Florida Tuesday morning. But watch how when this thing really gets over the eastern Gulf, it gets going. The more that millibar number drops, the stronger the low pressure. So, we start to get into Thursday morning, July 17th. We have a strengthening tropical system over the northern Gulf here. And it's just chilling over I wouldn't say it's chilling because it's warm, but it's just bathing in the bathwaters of the northern Gulf. And it's strengthening, and it ultimately makes landfall. Now, I will say the icon from 12Z was like a Category 2 hurricane. This run is more like a strong tropical storm. But it does have a tropical storm making landfall. That's not Mitch saying there's going to be a tropical storm that hits Louisiana. And I know you're thinking, man, why are you yelling at us? It's because people will hear what I just said and tell everybody and their cousin's uncle's dog that guy said that there's going to be a tropical storm hitting Louisiana on Friday morning. It's not what I'm saying. It's just model guidance. But this is sort of the aggressive model. Do I think this has a possibility to happen? Absolutely. I absolutely do. But has a tropical storm making landfall and causing a lot of issues into Florida at the end of this coming work week. And another way to look at this is, once again, that now on the icon, you never can look at the 850 millibar vort. You can only look at 500 millibars. But watch how I put this in motion. You can literally just see the cyclonic spin of this and how the vortice really tightens and strengthens. And you obviously have an eyesore there on your map. Looks like a zit. All right, just a piece of energy getting thrown into Louisiana, which is your tropical storm. Now, a lot of people say, and I would agree, especially the NAM, why are you using a short-range model for the tropics? And my answer to them would be, well, what else are you going to use when you're trying to figure out what the moisture is going to do in the short term for any kind of land? So it's not like we're looking at the HRRR model and this thing is over the open waters, right? We're looking at the HRRR model, HRRR model. I like to go back and forth on how I say that. With this bringing moisture over the state of Florida. Okay, so what else are you going to look at? The Weather Channel future forecast thing that people look at. So it's the best thing you can look at. You don't look at the GFS or the Euro when you're trying to look at short-range model guidance as far as, the bandings of rain and stuff like that. I hope that makes sense. You can. It will kind of give you the idea of the position, but as far as the details, it's tough to do. So you guys know I like the HRRR model. I prefer it over the NAM. If I had to choose one or the other, I would definitely choose this. So after all that rambling I just did, okay, we get into tomorrow afternoon. Look how I got this in motion. You can see that spin off the coast of Florida. Okay, let's back it up again. Let's do it again. So this is tomorrow morning, and this is tomorrow midday, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, the middle of the night. This is Tuesday morning. This is Tuesday midday. You saw how I did that. It was quite literally a spin that gets eventually pushed right into Florida. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get a tropical storm developing in the next 36 hours and gets pushed into Florida, but I am saying that it looks like this thing has a pretty defined spin to it already before it even gets to the Gulf. So it's interesting that it shows that. I think that if this is the way it happens, you got to watch out even for like a tornado threat, water spouts. But anyways, that's interesting to me. Now, let's talk about what could support a tropical system. This is cut and dry stuff here, except it's in Celsius, so it's a little bit tough. But it's tropical tidbits, once again, available to the public. I know you're seeing 30s and 31s. You're thinking, man, it's 30 degrees in the Gulf of Mexico, Fahrenheit. No, this is in Celsius. So it says 30, 31, some 29s. When you convert that to Fahrenheit, let's just say the mid-80s. In some areas where this tropical system could potentially go, right? It could go right into this area right here. We got sea surface temperatures in the low 30s Celsius, which is like the upper 80s in Fahrenheit. Some buoys out here are probably measuring 90-degree sea surface temperature waters. So, yeah, it's warm. Check that off the box. That supports a tropical system, absolutely. Now, after that, there's not a whole lot I can show you. One thing I will tell you is ridging will be impacting this system's steering currents, and I do think it will help the upper wind pattern for the system. But let's talk about the upper wind pattern when we get a little bit closer. Why is this thing getting steered the way it's getting steered? For example, I'll go back to here, right? The area of interest is dubbed in the Gulf, but the system right now is right here, or maybe a little bit further south. So I know I've read some questions in the audience, in the comments and on Twitter, and they're saying, man, what is making it do that? Like, kind of, and I'll agree, you don't see it a whole lot. But you do see it. If you're going to see it, you see it this time of the year with decayed cold fronts. We call it homegrown activity. So let's discuss why it does that. So we go back to this, and I just want to show you the icon just because you can see the system the best on here because it's the stronger scenario. But it's the same with all model guidance. Now you see there ain't a whole lot to look at on the screen, right? But you see sort of the warmer colors, the yellows, and it gets into orange up here. This is ridging, high pressure, right? And then you see the blues and even the whites. This is lower pressure. But when it gets to blue and then dark blue, and then eventually it can get to green when it's a really deep lower pressure, or a trough, or just, and like I said, area lower pressure, it could show up in green. But the flow around your low pressure itself, folks, and let's see if I can make this a little bit smaller. The low pressure is going to go like this, right? Cyclonic flow in the northern hemisphere. So that's how your systems spin, right? And we're going to talk about this a lot when we're breaking down a larger tropical system. Now, this is for 15Z Tuesday, so let's call it Tuesday morning. So the flow around this high pressure is kind of doing like this, right? So it's steering this kind of into the Gulf, right? Because the flow is going like that, and it kind of goes up like this. Now, there is flow inside this ridge, too, in little weak spots. So it doesn't always tell us the picture. It's tough. It's tough to explain this sometimes. But let's back it up a little bit, right? Because tomorrow morning, that area of lower pressure is right here. But once again, kind of the flow around this is going like this. So you think, well, why isn't this going to dip down here? Well, if I get this back in motion here, you'll notice this area lightens up because the ridging over the Gulf kind of weakens. So it kind of backs off more so, I should say. So you kind of get into Tuesday evening, and all of a sudden the ridge sort of is breaking apart over this area right in here. So suddenly, you got a pretty cut and dry flow. It's just pretty much going like this. And it kind of wraps up like that. So, our low pressure is just going to kind of cruise this way and follow the flow at the bottom of this upper ridging. So that's why it's kind of working its way that way. So you get this in motion, and as it strengthens, a stronger tropical system, I'll say this many times over the next several months, is always going to want to gain latitude. It'll fight to go north. We see that with land cyclones all the time. We see it with hurricanes all the time. And there's ways to explain this. A stronger storm system obviously has deeper convection, taller updrafts. Taller updrafts can go further up in the atmosphere and therefore be influenced by upper level winds more. Therefore, those are going to get yanked, these systems, a little bit further north. But in general, this isn't the best example of it. But this thing begins to head more so north, and on this specific run, the icon does make landfall in Louisiana and kind of goes and plows up against this light ridging here. There's a weakness here that kind of allows it to go north. So, and in general, this ridging on top of this isn't super strong. So that's why it does it. You can literally see how it just kind of, it kind of drops down, goes over Florida, kind of follows the flow at the bottom edge of this ridge, and then kind of begins to get slingshot back into the Gulf coastline. So hope that makes sense. there'll be many, many more opportunities to explain it. And one of those opportunities will be tomorrow morning. We'll go over all this information once again. Now, precipitation-wise, guys, regardless, the only impacts we know about this is it's going to bring a lot of rain. So, Florida, several inches of rain, as you can tell. It's between now and the next 7 days. We got a lot of rain up against the Florida Panhandle coastline, the Alabama coastline, Mississippi, and southeast Louisiana. Regardless if this develops into a tropical system, it's going to bring a lot of rain to Louisiana. So you might ask, what about winds? What can we expect in Billy Bob Town, Mississippi? Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. Don't let anybody fool you guys. We don't even know if we're going to get a tropical system out of this. But the final thing I would say is, if you asked me, are we going to get, an actual tropical system out of this, which could just be a tropical depression? I would, if it was a yes or no question, I would say yes. I think we will, but I could be wrong. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, that's all I got. We'll talk soon. We'll do it all again tomorrow morning. God bless.